reply, and a maximum of 5 minutes for any other member speaking, except, of course, the majority leader and the leader of minority, and the member seconding the motion, who shall be limited to a maximum of 10 minutes each. And that at least 2.5 hours before a vote is taken on the motion, the deputy president or the president, as the case may be, of course in this case is the deputy president, shall be accorded an opportunity to be heard in accordance with the Standing Order number 67B2 as a right to be heard. Honorable Speaker, going by the notice of motion that was tabled here yesterday by the move of this motion received overwhelming support of 291 signatures. That ideally means, Honorable Speaker, that members should be given adequate time to debate on this motion. Usually, of course, the House knows that we debate, each member gets about 10 minutes to speak on any motion. But because of the interest, the overwhelming interest across the political side, and with the 291 that support, and even the 53 or 54 who do not support, Honorable Speaker, the minority, they'll get that opportunity to articulate their issues on whether they support. Those who do not support, they'll also have their 5 minutes to support. You know, they arranged their thoughts within the 5 minutes. You articulate your issues within the 5 minutes, and also we give the mover 60 minutes so that he can actually place his grounds on the table without a hurry. 60 minutes, Honorable Speaker, and with 30 minutes right of reply. Honorable Speaker, for us this is clearly fair. And even to add on top, Honorable Speaker, we wish to move that the Deputy President is accorded an opportunity to be in this House and be heard. The proposal is 2 hours of defense in this floor, Honorable Speaker, without being interrupted, Honorable Speaker. So I beg to move, Honorable Speaker, that members arrange their votes within the allocated timeline and come in large numbers that very day, very early in the morning, to articulate their issues in support or in opposition, while opposing the motion, Honorable Speaker. So I beg to move, and I ask Honorable Sam Atandi to second.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as has been explained by the majority whip, this is a historical motion. And for some of us, we are lucky that we are going to witness and participate in the impeachment of the Deputy President. This is something which is very special, Madam Speaker. And I'm sure that, just like myself, all members of this House will be interested in giving a shot to this motion. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, we would like to request that everybody be given an opportunity. And so the motion that, the proposal that we have 5 minutes for members and 60 minutes for the mover is something which I would like to second, and I would like to appeal to members to support. Thank you. I support. I second. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, I now propose the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1 and notwithstanding the resolution of the House of February 14, 2024, this House orders that each speech in a debate on a special motion under Articles 145 and 150 of the Constitution shall be limited as follows. A maximum of 60 minutes for the mover in moving and 30 minutes in replying, and a maximum of 5 minutes each for any other member speaking, except for the leader of majority, the leader of minority party, and the member seconding the motion, who shall be limited to a maximum of 10 minutes each, and that at least 2.5 hours before a vote is taken on the motion, the Deputy President or President, as the case may be, shall be accorded an opportunity to be heard in accordance with Standing Order 67B2. That is the right to be heard. Honorable members, may I propose the question? Let me put the question. Okay, honorable members, I now put the question. What's your point of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Immediately after.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just wanted some little bit of clarification. Because I've tried to do the, while I agree with the motion, Madam Speaker, I've tried to do the computation of the period. And I'm a bit, that's why I'm seeking your clarification, that the mover will have 1 hour, the seconder will have 30 minutes, the leader of majority and minority will have 10 minutes each. So, the seconder will have
10 minutes. The
Yes,
seconder will have 10 minutes.
So are we saying, therefore, Madam Speaker, that is it 2.5 hours maximum, including the time that the mover is moving, plus the leader of majority and the seconder, and that each one of us gets 5? We have a lot to say about this motion, Madam Speaker. I am a bit disturbed that we have a lot to say about this motion, and I think 5 minutes and allotting the mover 1 hour, I think we can give the mover 40 minutes so that we get time to say, and we have a lot to say about this motion.
Honorable Kamket, remember it will go on until the end of the day, which means it go up to midnight.
In that case, Madam Speaker, I propose that 5 minutes is too short for us. We have a lot to say. We have a lot, and I can assure you.
I think, Honorable Kamket, you have been overruled by your colleagues, but in any case, the practice in the House is that we've been doing 5 minutes. And in my experience, most people can make their point in 3 minutes. After that, they start repeating themselves. What's your point of order?
Please put the question, Madam Speaker. Put the question.
Okay, honorable members. Okay, I'll only entertain 2 points of orders. You are coming next, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I tend to agree with Honorable Kamket. We need more time to interrogate this issue. The issue of the impeachment of the Deputy President is not a clandestine issue. It's an issue that we need to interrogate. Some of the members who voted for the impeachment may have had the privilege to have had the motion before. The ones who had put the signature, obviously they signed on the motion having maybe some insight into what was in the motion. So us who are in the dark, we ask for more time to interrogate and discuss this issue entirely. Thank you.
Honorable Farah, and then I shall put the question.
Mr. Speaker, for the benefit of the House, Mr. Speaker, protect me from all of them. For the benefit of the House.
Honorable members, let us listen to Honorable Farah.
For the benefit of the House, there was a procedural motion that preceded this procedural motion that said until the conclusion, which means we can go up to midnight. But then having 291 members of parliament, anything more than 5 minutes is not likely to give an opportunity to everybody. In any case, those of you who studied literature, whatever you cannot convey in 5 minutes, you'll not be able to convey in 5 hours. So, Madam Speaker, put the question. Put the question.
Like I said, honorable members, my experience is that you can say whatever you want to say in 3 minutes. Beyond 3 minutes, you're repeating yourself. So honorable members, allow me to put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, and notwithstanding the resolution of the House of February 14, 2024, this House orders that each speech in a debate on a special motion under Articles 145 and 150 of the Constitution shall be limited as follows. A maximum of 60 minutes for the mover in moving and 30 minutes in replying, and a maximum of 5 minutes each for any other member speaking except the leader of majority party, the leader of minority party, and the member seconding the motion, who shall be limited to a maximum of 10 minutes each, and that at least 2.5 hours before the vote is taken on the motion, the Deputy President or the President, as the case may be, shall be accorded an opportunity to be heard in accordance with Standing Order 67B2. That's the right to be heard. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Yes, I think let's go to order number 11. And okay, your point of order, Leader of Majority. Then we'll go to
Honorable
order
Speaker, actually is a point of information emanating from something the Honorable Mwago has said, that the 291 members who signed the motion had interacted with the motion, and it is true. And the 50 or so who have not signed have not interacted. Just to inform the member for Starehe that we are indeed, the clerk's office is in the process now of translating the motion in Swahili so that you may read and understand. The only language you may not be able to translate to is vernacular, but it will be both the motion and the questionnaire will be uploaded in Swahili. Therefore, it will be very easy for the member for Starehe now to read and understand the motion. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
What's your point of order, member for Starehe?
It's quite unfortunate that such a senior member in this House would take time to insinuate that I don't understand English. I understand that we went to alliance, but of late your utterances has been putting alliance school into question, very wanting by the way you're conducting yourself. You are a very ranking member to be answering me, actually. Thank you.
Okay, honorable members, let's move to the next order. But member for Starehe, I think the assurance is that it needed to be translated in Kiswahili because those are the two official languages, and for the benefit of our constituents who will be reading it. But also, I think most importantly, you'll be able to find the motion at the table office, which means you can get a copy of it as soon as now, and then you can be able to read it. Let's go to the next order, order number 11. What is your point of clarification, member for Dagoretti?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to tell the member of Starehe, the motion was tabled yesterday. It is public. You just pick it and read it.
Thank you. Let's proceed to the next order, order number 11.
Order number 11, motion number 24 of 2023, policy and funding for sugarcane farming in the country. Question to be put.
Honorable members, I now put the question that aware that the commercial sugarcane production in Kenya was introduced in the early years of independence with an aim of eliminating dependence on sugar importation and contributing to economic transformation in the belt and the country at large through agriculture, acknowledging that at its pinnacle, the sugar industry significantly contributed to the country's national gross domestic product and became one of the largest employers, which supported livelihoods of many Kenyans, both directly and indirectly. Concerned that over the last 25 years, sugarcane farming, particularly in Western Kenya, has been declining significantly, thereby dipping the sugar production from over 600,000 metric tons per year in the 1990s to less than 300,000 metric tons in the recent years. Noting that the decline in the sugarcane farming has forced local millers to operate far below their milling, I think he has now frozen, but he's doing it deliberately, I think, because he knows. Yeah, so noting that the decline in the sugarcane farming has forced local millers to operate far below their milling capacities and push the country to an over-reliance on net importation of sugar, which negatively impacts on the balance of trade, and noting that the decline in sugar production is attributable to the factors such as mismanagement, interference, and unfair competition from the cheap imported sugar. Further concerned that the state-owned sugar millers like Mumia Sugar Company, Nzoia Sugar Company ceased milling while owing farmers hundreds of millions of shillings, and appreciating that the government has been putting in place strategies, policies, and regulations to define roles of millers and major players and stakeholders in the sugar industry. in a bid to revamp the sector, concerned that the acute shortage of sugarcane resulting from mass abandonment of sugarcane farming continues to roll back initiatives of reviving sugar milling. And recognizing that further investment in revamping sugar companies before reviving sugarcane farming would occasion loss of invested public funds instead of yielding success. Now, therefore, this House resolves that the national government, through the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, reviews the sugar development policies to provide that every investor miller sets aside definite funds for development of sugarcane farming, incentivizing farmers to embrace sugarcane growing and to enhance cane production in each of the respective zones. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. So we shall go back to order number 7.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
I think we have a question by the Honorable Robert Gishumu, member for Gishugu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Actually, it's a request for statement. And it's a request for statement regarding the payment of tea bonuses for Kemunye and Thumaita tea factories for the financial year 2023-2024. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44-2C, I rise to request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock regarding the payment of tea farmers' annual bonuses in the Kemunye and Thumaita tea factories for the financial year 2023-2024. Honorable Speaker, in mid-September 2024, the Board of Directors for Kemunye and Thumaita tea factories in Geshogo constituency declared the payment of bonuses for the period between 1st July 2023 and 30th June 2024. These factories, which fall under Zone 5 of the two tea-growing regions, were ultimately to pay at Kenya shillings 51 per kilogram and 46 per kilogram, respectively. The declaration, which fell lower than expected payments, has sparked mass demonstrations and a boycott of tea plucking by farmers who primarily depend on tea farming for their livelihoods. This situation poses a serious risk to the economic development in the region. Honorable Speaker, the Kenya Tea Development Agency National Chairman, Mr. Enos Jero, via a public announcement stating that the bonus would be at least 60 shillings per kilogram. The lower payments have thus led to widespread dissatisfaction and accusations of misleading information. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I request the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and to appraise the House on the following. 1, provide a detailed breakdown of the total gross tea bonus payments per kilogram of green tea leaves that should have been payable to farmers before deductions. 2, a clear explanation of the deductions made from the gross payments that resulted in the declared net pay for both Kemunye and Thumaita tea factories. 3, a clarification on amounts reserved or retained from farmers' payments for per kilogram of green tea leaf and the specific purposes of these reserves or retentions and whether they can be disbursed as part of additional payments to farmers beyond the declared net bonus. And finally, the basis on which the KTDA National Chairman, Mr. Enos Jeru, publicly declared that the bonus payment for the period would be at least 60 shillings per kilogram of green tillage. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and this is a very, very urgent request for statement because the farmers in the two or under the two factories are still on the boycott. They are not plucking tea. So I request for an urgent response to this request for statement, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Okay, is the chairperson here for the Committee on Agriculture and Livestock Development? Okay, Honorable Brighton, you're going to speak. Give him the mic.
Okay, Madam Speaker, this matter by Honorable Kishumu is related to the two others that we had, there's two other statements that we had done before, and we request for 2 weeks so that we can be able to do a reply.
Right. Deputy Majority Leader, you'll ensure that it goes to the desk of the Agriculture Committee. Next, we have a statement by the Honorable Francis Sigei, member for Sotik.
Request for a statement regarding the status of construction of Cheborge Junction, Kiwastuya Road, and Sotik Silala Road. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 44, 2C, I rise to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure regarding the status on construction of Cheborge Junction, Kiwastuya Market Road, and Sotik Silalo Road. Honorable Speaker, on 8 May 2021, the Kenya Rural Roads Authority, KERA, awarded MSQ Construction Limited a contract to upgrade the Cheborge Junction, Kiwastuya Market Road, and the Sotik Silalo Road to bitumen standards for a contract of Kenya shillings 590,662,680 shillings. The project was initially scheduled to commence on 6th of July 2021, but commenced on 3rd of August 2021, with a completion date of 3rd March 2023. In addition, it is alleged that the contractor has been paid the full contract sum, yet the project remains incomplete. The excruciating delay in completion of upgrading of the road has severely impacted businesses in the area, with farmers facing challenges in transporting their produce to the markets. This has resulted in a substantial losses for families dependent on these businesses for their livelihoods. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure on the following. 1, challenges experienced by the project leading to prolonged delay in completing the upgrading of Cheborge Junction, Kiwastuya Market Road, and Sotik Silala Road. 2, state whether the full contract sum for the project was paid to the contractor, and the justification for the payment despite the project being incomplete. 3, an update on when the contractor will resume the works and expected timelines for completion of road, considering that the Sotik Silala Road is impassable. And 4, the measures being taken by the ministry to ensure that value for the money is obtained with respect to to the project without causing significant inconveniences to the locals and alternative measures for the impassable section of the road. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. I think that will be marked to the departmental committee, the Committee on Transport and Infrastructure. Is there a member here or the chairperson? Again, Deputy Majority Leader, I will leave that to you. Okay. All right. Okay, now let's go to answers to the questions that have been posed last week. So the Honorable Meli, Member for Tinderet, Chair of the Education Committee. You have a response for the Honorable Edith Nyenze, MP for Kitui West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Edith Nyenze, as per Standing Order 44.2c on 21st of August, requested for statement on the employment status of P1 teachers who upgraded their education with a view to being absorbed as junior secondary school teachers. Honorable Speaker, the issue raised by Honorable Nyenze is an issue of national concern to the teachers of this country, especially those who upgraded with the intention of going to implement as part of the retooling of the CBC. In response to that particular statement, Honorable Speaker, I did transmit the question to the concerned government agency, the Teacher Service Commission, who actually gave me the document that I have, and I will actually do, I'll skim through the document, Honorable Speaker. Thereafter, I'll hand it over to Honorable Nyenze to go through it, and if there are any further clarification, you will actually seek them later. The Teacher Service Commission responded as follows to the issues raised in the statement. That there's the report on the policy framework while TSC directed P1 teachers to upgrade their courses. This is a policy paper on why the Teacher Service Commission directed P1 teachers to upgrade. With the introduction of the competence-based curriculum, it became necessary for P1 teachers to be trained on the new pedagogical skills to enable them to effectively implement the new curriculum and disseminate knowledge to learners. The other policy is that, accordingly, the Commission did put in place an elaborate and comprehensive program for P1 teachers employed by the Commission to be retooled on the new pedagogical skills to upgrade them to effectively disseminate the knowledge. The other policy statement is that the Commission is aware that the policy direction by the Ministry of Education was based on the recommendation of the Fatuma Chege's task force on enhancing access, relevance, training, equity, and quality for effective curriculum reforms and implementation 2020. The report of the Presidential Working Party 2023 that recommended that Ministry of Education ensures that all teachers who graduated before 2023 undergo mandatory one-year retooling and upgrading program to align with the new curriculum. This upgrading is essential to teachers to acquire proficiency in CBC implementation. That is actually the policy behind telling the teachers to go. Number two, a timeline when the preferred teachers, question two was, she asked that a timeline of when the referred teachers will receive certificates for the diploma courses they pursued. That's the question asked by Honorable Member. Noting the upgrading program for P1 teachers who are not yet employed by the Commission, the timelines may be provided by the Ministry of Education, who coordinated the program. Madam Speaker, the providers of the diploma training, and I think this is where the teaching and training of the teachers took place, was in the primary teachers training colleges, which the Teacher Service Commission indicated here is actually the preserve of the Ministry of Education. In so doing, I also went ahead and asked the ministry to really give us, and that is something which I did as a chair, to give us the timelines under which these certificates are supposed to be issued. And I think that is a supplementary question which the Ministry of Education needs to give on this. On question three, She sought an explanation as to why the commission is here to prioritize and consider P1 teachers whom it advised to augment their education for purposes of absorption as JSS teachers. The Teacher Service Commission indicated on that question that in the wake of CBC, it became pertinent for P1 teachers to be retooled on the new pedagogical skills to enable them to effectively implement the new curriculum. Accordingly, the purpose of retooling the P1 teachers was to effectively equip them to better teach CBC at the primary level and not at the JSS level. That is, the P1 is supposed to teach the CBC in grade 1 to grade 6, not at the JSS. Number 7, to this end, the course content of the upgrade in Diploma Primary Education Program is designed specifically for primary education to improve quality teaching and in the primary. Additionally, the career pathway for teachers teaching at JSS is that of secondary school teacher, distinct from P1 teacher at the primary school level. Hence, the upgrade was not intended as a pathway for P1 teachers to be absorbed into JSS. The fourth question was the steps taken by the Commission, or what steps has the Commission taken to ensure that P1 teachers who upgraded their education are absorbed in the rightful job grades? Honorable Speaker, this is a question which is asked by every teacher who was upgraded, even in my constituency and even in the country at large. Teachers are asking, we have been retooled. We are no longer the P1 certificate. We have gotten a diploma. The Teacher Service Commission has made the following statement, that the upgrade in Diploma Primary Education Program is meant to equip P1 teachers with the required pedagogical skills to implement CBC at the primary school level. These teachers, once employed, are posted to public primary schools. In view of the upgrading program and the ongoing certification by NEC, the Commission will commence the review of its career progression guidelines for purposes of grading such teachers. Actually, this particular statement, Madam Speaker, is actually not indicating when these people will be paid for the opportunities forgone. So it has actually said that they are going to look at the career progression guidelines for purposes of grading for the upgrading of the teachers. This is the statement, and I've just gone through it. The whole statement is actually bulky, and it has indicated every other aspect that Honorable Nyense has asked. I thank you, Madam Speaker, and I shall actually be able to hand over the statement to Honorable Nyense. Thank you. I submit.
Thank you. Honorable Nyense, would you like to say something?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Actually, thank you for the answers, but the response is not satisfactory. And this is because the Commission actually identifies the teachers to augment their education, and by doing so, they were supposed to take 1,500 hours, which is roughly 9 months. They went for that training. They actually paid some money, that is tuition fee, and also spent a lot of time leaving their families. But after that, they were not considered in any way. Those ones who were already P1 teachers were not promoted, and they were not given any advantage even after getting the diploma. The other teachers, P1 teachers, are still being retooled even now, but after they go for that training, they are reimbursed, and they have the advantage of not spending so much resources on the training which they are undergoing. So these teachers feel that it's like they have been forgotten. Those ones who got the diploma and we are already P1 teachers, we are not taken to teach in the junior secondary, even though the response says that they were being trained to be in primary school section, the CBC, but still we don't have adequate teachers in the JS. You have our O class, you are given our O class, maybe you are trained as a mathematics teacher, and you are supposed to even teach history, you are supposed to teach CRI in that class. So there's still, this education is still wanting as far as junior secondary is concerned. And the commission, the reason why they came up with this diploma course was that these teachers were supposed to teach in the junior secondary after being upgraded. The other disadvantage is some of them who were not employed went for that training, spent more money, thinking that they will be observed in the teaching service, in the teacher service commission. But they've not been employed even after getting the diploma. So the response is not satisfactory at all to those ones who are upgraded, because they have no advantage over the others. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I don't know if you have a response, Honorable Meli. Maybe you can clarify for her.
Yes, I want to agree with the Honorable Nyenze, especially in education, Madam Speaker, we have what we call opportunities for gone. And if actually the Teacher Service Commission directed that the teachers go and upgrade, they got a diploma certificate, and now they are back, and there is no advantage gain. Yet they have gotten the skills, they have gotten the pedagogical and the know-how. I think they really deserve some salary increase to show that you've taken 15 hours, you paid for the tuition and all this. And that's something we need to pursue, even as a chair of education and as a committee of education. We really need to pursue that so that at least these teachers are compensated adequately for the acquisition of the new skills and similarly for the time they have taken for training, and they are now better teachers than those who have not gone in there. I think you have a point, Madam Honorable Nyenze, and I think, Madam Speaker, I will really pursue that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now let's proceed to the answers by the Chair for the Committee on Health, Honorable Pukose. Or did he, has he nominated somebody to answer to the question by Honorable Rehab Mokami, member for Nyeri County? I thought I'd seen Honorable Pukose here. And then there's also another second question to be answered by the chairperson of the Committee on Health, Honorable Pukose, which was sought by Honorable John Mukunji, member for Manyata. Did Honorable Pukose assign anyone? Okay, I think we'll pass those two and then move them to another time. So we can move to the next order.
Order number 12, motion number 28 of 2023, establishment of a science museum.
Honorable John Kiaria.
Madam Speaker, I really thank you. And I want to move this motion that aware that Article 11(2)(b) of the Constitution provides that the government shall recognize the role of science and indigenous technologies in the development of the nation, and further aware that the Vision 2030 provides for the integration of information, communication, and technology in the country's transformative agenda, and concerned that there exists no science museum for the consolidation for consolidating indigenous scientific and technological innovations, training and research purposes in all of the East African region, and appreciating that the integration of science and technology would greatly enhance Kenya's economic and societal success, and noting that there is potential growth in the technology sector by establishing a science museum, and further noting that the informal science education plays a key role in progression of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, acknowledging that science museums operate as the nexus between science practitioners, policymakers, and the public, and cognizant of the fact that a science museum in the country would greatly impact on the economy of the country in the quest to become an industrialized nation. Now, therefore, this House resolves that the national government, through the relevant ministries, establishes and operationalizes a science museum in the country. Madam Speaker, I am standing on the floor of this House in the year 2024 and asking this House to agree with me that we should urge the government to establish a science museum in Kenya, and this will not be just the first science museum in East Africa. It will be the first and only science museum in all of Africa. Madam Speaker, a science museum becomes something important for a nation like us that has espoused in its guiding documents, starting with the Vision 2030, Madam Speaker, which says that we endeavor to be a knowledge-based economy. Madam Speaker, it is also this country that has developed the Kenya Digital Superhighway Project, an aspiration of Kenyans to be connected to technology of today. When we talk of technology of today, Madam Speaker, we are talking at a time when we are talking of the onset of the fourth industrial revolution, also being called the era that shall be driven by artificial intelligence. Madam Speaker, we are seeing technologies like blockchain technology, the Internet of Things. All these advancements in technology are telling us that we're in a new era. But even in this new era, Madam Speaker, we ought to speak as Kenyans and speak as Africans and ask ourselves, if this is the fourth industrial revolution, where was Kenya in the third industrial revolution? Where was Kenya in the second industrial revolution? Where was Kenya in the first industrial revolution? Where was Africa when the world was moving into steam energy and mechanizing their operations? Where was Africa when the world adopted electricity as a way and a mode of driving their technology? Where was Africa when we were moving into microchips in what was called the dot-com era or the third industrial revolution? And I dare say that Africa slept through all those previous three revolutions. The question begs, are we the generation of parliamentarians that will superintend over Africa sleeping through the fourth industrial revolution? Madam Speaker, today the world is advancing using what I would call the Western model of development. The Western model of development is informed mostly by the advancements that have been introduced to the world by the British Empire, when they were able to conquer the world to a point where it was said that the sun never sets on the British Empire. These British are the ones who have introduced this new model of advancement that we are in today, Madam Speaker. But if you approach the British, they would tell you that before they came into their advancements, they were referred to as barbarians. If you ask the British, who is that person who came and advanced you? They will tell you that all the knowledge we have, we got it from the Romans. You will approach the Romans and you shall ask the Romans, where did you get the knowledge that you pride yourself in? And the Romans will tell you, all the knowledge that we have, we got it from the Greek. But Madam Speaker, our education system will only teach us only that far. If you seek further than that, Madam Speaker, you shall find that the Greek got all the knowledge that they have from Africa, Madam Speaker. That those people that we celebrate, those people that we call the Pythagoras and the boys, Aristotle, Socrates, and all these very famous people who are said to be the fathers of the disciplines of knowledge that we practice today, the fathers of psychology, the fathers of philosophy, the fathers of chemistry, the fathers of all these advancements that we talk about in education today, if they were honest to you, they will tell you that they came to Africa and found very advanced universities. In North Africa, we know of the universities that were in Egypt. In West Africa, we know of the great advancements and civilizations and libraries that were in Mali. Where we are, Madam Speaker, around the Habesha region also known as Abyssinia, but actually the Kush kingdoms. We had our own technological advancements, our own advanced technology that would shock the world, Madam Speaker. If you go south, you will find advanced, very extremely advanced.
What's your point of order? He's still moving his motion.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I want to inform my colleague, who is my good friend, about the Greek philosophers, the Aristotle, the Plato. Majority of them, they never went to Africa, but we acknowledge Pythagoras' theorem came from Egypt. So it is good for my brother, good friend of mine, to learn it. And most of these philosophers, they never visited Africa before Athens moved towards democracy. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I'm sure you're so informed. You may proceed.
Madam Speaker, that is a point of argument, and I wish that the Honorable CNN would wait for me to move the motion so that he can bring up this argument. But if you are patient enough, I will take him to class and let him know that I am speaking from a point of fact, that all this advancement that we call the Greek foundational knowledge was actually stolen, pilfered, borrowed from Africa. Madam Speaker, there is a great city in North Africa called Alexandria. And Alexandria celebrates a man known as Alexander the Great. This man is known worldwide as a great general of war. The story we are never told is that when Alexander and his soldiers came into Africa, they went into our very advanced libraries and universities. But they were not kind enough, Madam Speaker. When they pilfered what was in our libraries, they burnt down our libraries to the ground, razed down all the knowledge, stole it, pilfered it, and took it to Europe and claimed it to be their own knowledge. And that is the knowledge that they have put in books. And today, we celebrate the Greeks as the foundational fathers of the knowledge that we have. But I would like to let the Honorable CNN know that this knowledge, as a matter of fact, dig deeper into your reading, and you shall find that this knowledge was actually stolen from Africa. Madam Speaker, this would help in explaining why we have such advanced technology in places like Cairo, where and Egypt, where we have what you would call the pyramids, Madam Speaker. People see pyramids just as structural formations, but I would like to say that even today, with all the advanced Western knowledge that we have, the scientists are not able to explain how the traditional African was able to put up such technological marvels as the pyramids. Pyramids that are aligned astronomically and astrologically, scientifically perfect, aligned to pyramids that are in South America, pyramids that are in the East, all scientifically aligned to a scientific exactitude that cannot be achieved even by the knowledge and scientific advancements that we have today. But most importantly, Madam Speaker, I was talking about the fact that Africa has not always been a technological dwarf. At some point in its moments of greatness, Africa was a scientific and technological giant. The misconceptions that Africa is a scientific dwarf emanate from the fact that, one, all of African traditional knowledge, all of African traditional heritage has not been put to books. It has not been recorded in words and figures. And as such, people who are reading science today only understand what was captured in books, in numeracy, in literacy. But they may never understand some of the oral traditional African knowledge that used to be preserved and transitioned to other generations orally. That is why, Madam Speaker, the African today suffers an inferiority complex. Africans, like CNN, may never know that it was Africans that civilized Europe into hygiene, Madam Speaker. That between the years of 700 to around 1400, Madam Speaker, it is emperors who came from Africa, went into Europe, conquered Europe, civilized Europe from its barbaric ways, and taught them how to use toilets, Madam Speaker. Europeans who are busy defecating in the streets and so on, Madam Speaker. And allow me, Madam Speaker, to prosecute this issue because it is a historical fact that the Black Moors were the emperors who ruled Europe between the years of 700 something AD and 1400 AD. Madam Speaker, the point I want to make is that the absence of the recording of our history, for us not being able to record our history, for us not being able to exhibit our history, for us not being able to preserve our technological advancements, we suffer the risk of misunderstanding our history because we shall only be served that which maybe the oppressor would want for us to know. However, Madam Speaker, we ought to understand that if you do not tell your story the way you want your story to be told, your story shall be told by somebody else in the way they want to tell it. So, Madam Speaker, my motion...
Order? Your hand is up. But I can see your hand is up, but I'm not able... I can hear you saying point of order, but I cannot see you anywhere on the screen. Do you have your card? The card is not working. Okay, it's working now. So what is out of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My concern is Honorable Kerry is bringing out very valid points. However, for him to use statements like Africans, like CNN, will never understand, will never know, that puts all of us to be in a point of ignorance that we do not know, except for Honorable Kerry. Can he use more dignified language towards Africans, where I'm one of them?
Madam Speaker, valid point.
I do not want to defend you. I know that you have a lot of respect for Africans, but I don't want to defend you. So,
Madam Speaker, you got it perfectly. In fact, I celebrate Africans. That's why I'm moving this motion. And in fact, I would not want to generalize anybody into a point of ignorance because I know how well informed Africans are, up to and including my good friend CNN. I was making a reference to the fact that if one does not tell their story the way they want to tell their story might be told by somebody else in a way that you do not want to tell the story. Madam Speaker, I am moving a motion where I would want this parliament to support me so that we can establish a science museum that will create a nexus between scientists, scientific practitioners, policy makers, students, and the publics, different publics, so that we are able to preserve our technological advancements in a museum that is a living museum. Madam Speaker, it might be a point of argument that we already have museums, Madam Speaker. But the kind of museum I'm talking about is not a museum of natural history. A museum of natural history, as they exist today, is a museum that I would refer to as a dead museum. And with all respect, Madam Speaker, dead in the fact that in these museums, we go to see exhibitions of taxidermies or stuffed animals that are already dead. We go to see things of the past. A science museum is normally a museum that exhibits, is a living museum. It is able to cover the history of technological advancements from the past, taking into cognizance what is happening in the present, and also trying to imagine a future as we would want to imagine it, Madam Speaker. In Kenya today, where we are at, if you took just one line of science, a line that I know the Honorable Elisha knows very well, a line of telecommunication, for example, only quarter of a century ago, Madam Speaker, the order of the day was the dial telephone. The order of the day was a call box. But the child born today, a Gen Z, a Gen Alpha, cannot tell you what a call box is. They cannot tell you what a CD-ROM is. They cannot tell you what a floppy drive is. This is knowledge that will be lost, Madam Speaker. This is knowledge that if we do not preserve, we might suffer the fate that our forefathers suffered when traditional historical artifacts were being expatriated from this continent and being exhibited in far-flung capitals. As we speak today, Madam Speaker, it is common knowledge that we've got tons and tons of traditional African artifacts that are on exhibit in capitals far away from this continent. Madam Speaker, in this fourth industrial revolution, Africa cannot suffer the same fate. We ought to proactively stand up and claim our pole position as an African technological giant that Kenya is, to spearhead the new era by establishing science museums that will showcase Africa's scientific greatness, traditional greatness, that will showcase Africa's traditional scientific prowess. Madam Speaker, it was during COVID that people were scampering to look for a remedy. But I dare say, in places like Nyanza, somehow COVID was not as prevalent or was not as bad as it was elsewhere. And Madam Speaker, when you whisper to members from Nyanza, they will tell you that when COVID broke out, they fell back to a traditional remedy that they had used for centuries to cure and remedy malaria. A very bitter herb that is normally taken and boiled and taken as such. And it mitigates against the effects of fever, against the effects of a flu, and it was also working against the effects of COVID. Madam Speaker, this traditional knowledge is what is normally picked up by multinationals. They extract the active ingredients, but because they would not want to have something that they cannot preserve, they additionally add preservatives and conservatives. But even more dangerously, they put up a brand. And when the brand comes on, it gives it a premium position and it becomes an expensive product. But where is the African with the Wairimo plant that is planted in the mountain region that is able to cure a cold or a flu? This Wairimo plant is an active ingredient that is forming part of very many modern medicines, Madam Speaker. But this knowledge, if not preserved, if not exhibited, will go into waste, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the other point I would like to make is that we are coming into a new world. What I called the fourth industrial revolution, mainly driven by artificial intelligence. And you know, artificial intelligence, being the driver of Industry 4.0, relies on data. Data shall fuel the next world. Africa traditionally has not written down its data. Africa's data is not in numerals, it is not in numbers. So today, artificial intelligence is scraping data out of the internet, data that Africa is not present, so that we realize that Africa has not Africanized the internet as much as the internet has internetized Africa. And so, going into the fourth industrial revolution, our data might be missing in the formation of the driving force and the fuel that will drive the fourth industrial revolution. But most importantly, Madam Speaker, data representation. All data centers, main data centers that we are seeing are in the northern hemisphere. We want to see Africa contributing its data so that we are able to drive this fourth industrial revolution. Madam Speaker, with those few points, I would like to call upon members to support me in this motion that seeks to provide a science museum. Madam Speaker, to bring about a science museum that shall consolidate indigenous scientific and technological innovations, shall be a center of training and research purposes, and also shall be the nexus between the scientists, the science practitioners, the policymakers, and the general publics. Madam Speaker, I thank you. and I ask members to support me on this motion. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Honorable KJ, who is the seconder of your motion?
Madam Speaker, I would like to call upon the Honorable Elisha to second this motion.
Honorable Elisha, you may proceed.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second the motion by Honorable KJ and add that it's important that the country preserves our technologies, our indigenous technologies from outsiders. And I think establishment of a science museum is a good thing. And I want to congratulate Honorable KJ for thinking this far in terms of technology, engineering, and getting Kenya to the next level. I second.
Thank you, Honorable Elisha. Honorable members, I now propose the question that aware that Article 11(2)(b) of the Constitution provides that the government shall recognize the role of science and indigenous technologies in the development of the nation. Further aware that the Vision 2030 provides for integration of information, communication, and technology in the country's transformative agenda, concerned that there exists no science museum for consolidating indigenous scientific and technological innovations, training and research purposes in East Africa region. Appreciating that integration of science and technology would greatly enhance Kenya's economic and societal success, noting that there is potential for growth in the technology sector by establishing a science museum, further noting that the informal science education plays a key role in the progression of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM, acknowledging that science museums operate as the nexus between science practitioners, policymakers, and public, recognizing the fact that a science museum in the country would greatly impact on the economy of the country in the quest to become an industrialized nation. Now, therefore, this House resolves that the national government, through the relevant ministries, establishes and operationalizes a science museum in the country. Honorable members, we may now go ahead to debate. And I see the Honorable Charles Ngusianguna, member from Mwingi West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity just to defend and also to support my brother, Honorable KJ, for bringing up this motion, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we need to note that in life, we need science in every sphere of our life, because if you go and travel to this purported developed world, everywhere you go, there's a museum. For instance, the country I am proud of, where I have a lot of interest, is Greece, Athens. And Madam Speaker, this is one of the countries we need actually to go and benchmark on things to do with museums. If you go to Acropolis right now, you will find thousands of tourists visiting that country. If you go to War Museum in Athens, you will find thousands of tourists. If you go to Tate Britain Museum, which is in London, you will find thousands of the tourists, and many others, including so many museums you can think of. So museums will act as a key driver of economic growth in any country because of the tourism we are going to get in that. Madam Speaker, also establishing the Science Museum in this country will also help our learners and even our university students in advancing knowledge, leading to new discoveries in our country and also innovations. Who said we cannot become innovative? Who said we cannot even become more intelligent than other developed world, Madam Speaker. That is why I'm supporting this. Madam Speaker, establishing this science museum will also help us live a better life than other countries. We will talk of boosting of productivity in many aspects if we do a good research on them, Madam Speaker. And also, establishing this museum will also facilitate us in accessing information. When do we store information? Like discoveries, we usually do have a lot of scientists in our country. Where do we store this information? If we can have a science museum, we will be able to access a lot of necessary information, including our historian museum. Like, for example, if you want to get the facts about our founding father, President Kenyatta, where are we going to collect this information? We don't have museums that actually preserve our information and knowledge, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the issue of establishing museum will also help us to collect, preserve, and display our scientific significance artifacts, and that is why I am supporting. I am happy my brother KJ has borrowed a lot when he was bringing up this motion in Greece, recognizing the likes of Aristotle, Heraclitus, these Greek historians who actually made the world the way it is. And with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I fully support this motion. Asante.
Thank you. The Honorable Phyllis Bartol, member for Moiben.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this motion by Honorable KJ. Madam Speaker, a science museum is a museum primarily devoted for science. Madam Speaker, if you travel worldwide, you will discover that in established countries, science museums play a very important role in educating its citizens, its students, its professionals. Madam Speaker, when I was a lecturer teaching at the university, we used to have problems with students, history students. We used to encounter situations where history students or history master students or postgraduate students who are collecting data were not able to get real data, real life data, especially in our museums. Case of in point is the Fort Jesus. We have the one in the CBD, the archives. Madam Speaker, if you visit those spaces, there is nothing lively. It is just they are just documentaries, and they are not communicative. Madam Speaker, if we establish real museums where we have real-time, real information from the past to the present, it is going to be very important and very informative to our postgraduate students. I particularly talk about postgraduate students because I came from academia. If you visit countries like Israel, Madam Speaker, you visit their museums, you get real life experiences. You get, you go with the I mean, you get carried. You go back down history. You learn about their cultures. You learn about mummification, where people use how they used to preserve their dead. And it takes you back history, and you feel real. You feel like you can identify. You feel like you can place your hand. It is very communicative. Madam Speaker, that is what is the essence of a science museum. In Kenya, we have so many activities, so many cultures which need to be documented. And these cultures are not just for now, but they are going to shape our future. We are reshaping our curriculum, our education curriculum. We are having CBC, competence-based curriculum, where we want to teach our learners to practice what they are learning in class. Where else can they refer to history? Where can they relate? if we don't have such facilities in Kenya, science museums where they can go and interact with knowledge, they can go and learn, and that one shapes their future. Science says that the past shapes the future. Science museums are very important. We only view our hours in Kenya. The museums which we have in Kenya are only for recreation. We only visit there to pass time, to learn, for tourism. Even the tourists who come to Kenya, I don't think they really take home so much because we don't have so much to talk about. You go to Fort Jesus, it is dead. You only meet those young men and women take you around trying to create stories which even them, they might not be very sure about. And the places are also dilapidated. There's not much to talk about, for instance, the slave trade, which was happening in Kenya. To talk about butter trade, which was going on in the Indian Ocean. If we establish a very communicative science museum, Madam Speaker, we will be able to document all the stories, all the theories which we have heard about Kenya, and we will be having many people visiting this part of Kenya to come and have a feel of what happened in the past. We have our cultures, which are very soon going to get dormant because the young people are not, we don't have a place to preserve it so that even our young people can have a connection. Madam Speaker, these museums will help us appreciate revolution. Culture is not static and life is not static. What will we tell our people in the next 100 years if we don't have somewhere to store this information? What will we tell our people in future if we don't have places to store our stories? We are, for instance, in Kenya at the moment, we are going through a new thing about this issue of impeachment. You know, those are things which, those are stories which we will find them in our museums. Our children will learn that in 2024, a parliament of Kenya had a procedure of impeaching a deputy president. Where else will we store that if we don't have videos to keep them? Maybe not everyone will have an opportunity to come to parliament to read or to get that story, but that story can be found in a science museum. Madam Speaker, what I can say that a science museum will give an illustration where there will be convergence of science. That it will bring science together, it will bring technology together, maths, art, etc. And in that way, it is going to improve our daily lives. We are teaching our students to be innovators. We are teaching our young people to be innovators. Where will they learn about innovation if they don't go and learn or they get knowledge from the past so that they can have, they can relate of what took part in the past and what is currently going on in the present. So, Madam Speaker, I want to applaud Honorable KJ for bringing this very important motion because it is going to shape our lives in a very different way. It is going to inform history, it's going to inform science, it's going to inform knowledge, and it is going to make our system of education even better. Our students, our postgraduate students will have a place to get data. Data is very important in research, and it is only in those science museums that these students can go, sit, interact with real life experiences, and even improve knowledge and knowledge management. With those few statements or those remarks, I support the motion, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Professor. The Honorable Olive Gisairo, member for Kitutu Masaba.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My name is Clive, just for the record, not olive.
Okay. The Honorable Clive Gisairo, member for Kitutu Masaba.
Thank you, Madam
and
Speaker.
very proud of Alliance Boys.
Yes, thank you. I am a proud product of Alliance High School, not Alliance Boys. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this very good motion by my friend, Honorable Kiari, on the need to establish a science museum in Kenya because of the many reasons he has raised, which are positive, and to preserve our culture for the future generations. Madam Speaker, African history today is better documented outside Africa than in Africa itself. That if you want to learn about the crowd of mankind, you'll have to go to Europe, visit their museums for them to tell you that the first invention of ABC was actually in Africa. But there is no place in Africa you will find such a piece of documentation. Madam Speaker, this explains to a broader challenge that we have as Africans. We've embraced Westernization to a point that whatever is African is bad and whatever that is West is good. Madam Speaker, before the arrival of white man, Africans could still do surgery. We had cesarean sections. But who knows this? We've been made to believe that all these medicines, surgeries, operations, bone repairs came with a white man. There is nothing further from the truth. This has gone further to ensure that we believe that the African way of worship was evil. Actually, easily put and simplified as witchcraft. That the white man's way of worship is the right way, and therefore we were forced to discard what was ours. Such a museum, Madam Speaker, will ensure we have what I will simply call positive ethnicity, where each community, their history, their innovations can be put in a place where our young children can be able to see what was good from culture A, what was good from culture B. That brings forth a united country because we are able to learn from each other and embrace what is good from each other and not just seeing what is negative from the other community. Madam Speaker, we may be the last group because of our education system who are able to explain slavery. The generations coming after us may not even understand what we are talking about. Because the only knowledge they get about slavery, because we've adopted even the education system, it's what they tell us. It is not what we tell them. It is not what was documented by us, but it's what the white man, the Westerners, will want to tell us about slavery. The perpetrator cannot have a better view of the subject matter than the person affected. The best people to document this, to have this for the future generation, is us, Africans, ourselves. Unlike CNN, who has been to Greece and has interest there, I happen to have toured very many African countries. I have been to the deep of Congo. The history is rich, but no one writes it. The outsiders come and they will write how they discovered Mount Kilimanjaro. Where were we when they were discovering it? How they discovered Lake Victoria. Where were the Luos? We cannot sit down for people to discover, even they're discovering us. We discovered Africans. If we don't support such a motion to ensure we are able to give our children something to look back to, something to learn, we've absconded our languages. That we allowed, the Bible is translated to almost all native languages. But the child of today cannot even, they struggle to speak Swahili. Forget about my native language. Where are we heading as Africans? The traditional songs, all these will disappear if we don't put a museum that is not just well equipped, but is always revamped, supported financially, and enabled to ensure it keeps updating itself, upgrading itself, using modern technologies to ensure the information not only is retained within the museum itself, but reaches all parts of our people, not just in Africa, but in the world. This is possible, and I strongly support this motion by Honorable KJ. And I like his views. He has an artistic mind. A mind that shows the creativity of our people that nobody is ready to showcase. Honorable Kerry, thank you for such a motion, and I support in full. I submit, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Julius Ole Sunkuli, member for Kilgoris.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much for this opportunity to discuss this motion by my good friend KJ. And I'm a good lover of museums. When I go to Washington, D.C., I always visit the Smithsonian Museum. And the Smithsonian Museum has all those types of museums. Museum of History, Museum of Science, museum, all these museums. And when you look at a definition of what a museum, a science museum is, it's supposed to be a museum that collects and displays objects having scientific interest. And those people who run science museum, first of all, must have things to display, things that they show for themselves. And then they use the forum of the Science Museum for education. I support this motion because I know that the Honorable Mover is a visionary man who looks very far away. In Kenya, it's of course a good idea. I don't know whether it's an idea whose time has come. Because unfortunately for our country, we are not very well known for scientific innovation. Because these things we are supposed to display must either be as a result of our physics, as a result of our chemistry, as a result of our geology, as a result of the technological information, and so on. These things, we are still developing them. And I agree, we need to use these museums maybe as incubators towards the development of a good scientific environment in our country. We need to orient our minds, the minds of our young people, to start thinking about science. Well, I am a lawyer and my specialty is maybe history and literature. And nowadays, those things are, of course, considered not to be as important as they were when we were in school. But in truth, to speak the truth, I think science is acquiring a new meaning, especially technology. And we require a place where we dedicate ourselves to these things. And Madam Speaker, I hope that if this thing becomes a reality, that we don't make the same mistake that we're making with the national libraries. Recently, the country decided to devolve national libraries and make them the work of the counties. Libraries will die there because that is not a priority of the counties. If you take these kind of museums and tell them the county to do it, they do not have the same vision as my honorable friend KJ has. They will go and bury it in the counties and forget about it. Let us begin by starting it big in the different big towns of Kenya, in the city of Nairobi, in the city of Mombasa, in the city of Eldoret, in the city of Nakuru, and of course, in the city of Kisumu. If we had big places in those big places, then our young people will learn their science there. They will learn to store the information that they have, and they will learn to respect the fact that we learn from the past. Scientific knowledge in Kenya is what we need to move this country forward. Where Korea is, Koreans can, of course, display how their original car looked like, and then inspire young people to make their own cars. We can also perhaps have our own Uhuru car in that museum. We can have the good old RNH, the good old East African Railway in that museum. We have something to display, but we must use that as a springboard towards going back forward to the new innovations. Madam Speaker, I support.
Thank you very much. The Honorable John Gitonga, member for Manyata. The Honorable, I do not know whether, Honorable Gitonga, I can see you are lifting up your hand. I'm not even able to view you on the screen. What is out of order, Honorable Member for Nyamira County?
Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity. It was not a point of order. I just wanted you to take note that I'm within, but my card got lost somewhere. I wanted to contribute. So if you can allow me to continue.
Since you do not have a card, please take your seat. I'll make a decision on what to do. You may proceed, Member for Manyata.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also rise to support this motion. Honorable Speaker, as I commend my brother, Honorable Member for Dagoretti, for such a thoughtful motion. And Honorable Speaker, I am very intrigued with the proposal of a science museum. Honorable Speaker, it is true that we have allowed for too long our stories to be told by people who actually don't care much about our history. Honorable Speaker, a science museum will be a very, very important establishment for the future of this country and for the future, Honorable Speaker, of Africa, in terms of the advances that have been there since time immemorial on our advancement in science. And interestingly, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Kenje, who is in the arts, is the one who is proposing a museum for science. So it is very interesting. And Honorable Speaker, I believe this country has contributed a lot in the advancement of science in the world. Honorable Speaker, just the other day I was reading a book and found that one of the things that make what we call dirty genes was gotten from this country, somewhere in Naivasha, Honorable Speaker. But if you look and go around, you'll find the patent for such things is not in this country, but is somewhere in the US. Honorable Speaker, it is true that even our colonial history and the contributions of Kenyans and Africans in the colonial history was documented by the whites, but not by the people who actually were supposed to give the story, Honorable Speaker. And it is sad, it is not right, it is a big loss for, Honorable Speaker, our African culture, that even what we depend on is something that we are not coming from ourselves, but coming from people who actually visit this country. We have advancements even in gastronomy research being done in this country for years back. But, Honorable Speaker, you will not find those things in the history because we don't have a science museum, Honorable Speaker. That is why I really commend this motion. I also want to say it has a lot of contribution in ensuring that we create a niche, a multi-million niche of research, and ensure that we also advance the technologies that have come from within and not depending mostly, Honorable Speaker, from what we get from without. We have a lot of interest in KEMRI. And Honorable Speaker, I feel that is one of the organizations that need to be well guarded. But Honorable Speaker, government really does not give much for KEMRI on research. It tells you why we have a very low output when it comes to science research, when we really need continuous research and embracement of research in terms of the problems that we face today in science, Honorable Speaker. We just had COVID the other day, and there was no much money that was put to see if we can even have our own medicine coming from our own institutions and from our own people, Honorable Speaker. And I believe for a country that is bombarded a lot with a lot of things from the West, Honorable Speaker, it is upon this National Assembly and upon this administration that is there today to ensure that we put resources to ensure we improve on the technologies that can actually help this country advance and continue being ahead. And I'm happy that today we are talking of AI. And interestingly, I heard KJ mention that with AI, we should be able to document even things from our past and ensure that they are well put together in a science museum, Honorable Speaker. I also want to say that this country has also not put a lot of effort in ensuring that we also are leading way on the research on artificial intelligence. We are waiting for others to do things, then we pick it up, Honorable Speaker. That's why you find even many of the applications and many of the things that are happening here today, we have embraced technologies from outside the country without empowering our own technological advancements here, Honorable Speaker. I believe all this can be said, but if there is no funding, deliberate funding, we will not be able to keep up with what is happening in the world. The world is moving too fast. And when it is moving too fast, there is need to put more efforts. While we encourage job tourism outside the world, outside Kenya, Honorable Speaker, we should be able to have a strategy to retain some minds within Kenya for advancement of our own country and ensure that we are able to, we don't have a brain drain in terms of workforce. And Honorable Speaker, I believe this motion this issue of science museum, Honorable Speaker, is something that needs to be actually supported. I support it 100%. And Honorable Speaker, say that government needs to do an extra thing and ensure that it funds science, deliberately fund science. Honorable Speaker, I was in the University of Nairobi, and many of the researches that are happening in our universities are being funded from the West. Belinda and Gates Foundation and many other organizations that fund research in this country. And they fund and take it away. It is not remaining in this country. It is taken away to other countries, Honorable Speaker. It is sad, but I believe that it is upon us to ensure that we start taking research seriously. Research go hand in hand with the development of a nation. And Honorable Speaker, if you don't research, you don't develop. Today we are talking of AI. Tomorrow we are going to be talking of a different thing as the world is moving. Honorable Speaker, I rise and I support. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Gideon Ochanda, member for Bondo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to quickly mention a few things that, in my view, we need to be very careful about as a country. Number one, the place of museums. The place of museums in this country or any other parts of the world. If you compare, you realize that we are very far. We are extremely far away from where people are. We are extremely far away from what many other countries have isolated as their core historical developments in terms of whether it is scientific, cultural, or historical. We are very far. Museums ordinarily indicates how people have evolved over time. Keeping your evolution, history in terms of how you evolve, in terms of how you are doing your things, whether they're agricultural, whether your own things of production. Those are normally the reason why museums are in place. But if you look at our situation, the first problem we encounter, who does the collection? Even if they are artifacts, even if they are tools, whatever they are, who does the collections? Who identifies in terms of where we are able to collect or where we are able to get these things? Before you start talking about doing an infrastructure for purpose of storing them, who does them? If somebody met some old technology in the village, like the grinding stones, for example, they are very scientific in my view, in as much as they are for purpose of culture, history, and how food was produced. They are very scientific. How do you want to compare that with the meals that we have at the moment? It indicates exactly how you have developed and have evolved over a period of time. Who does that? Who identifies that this, for example, like I'm talking about, was really a scientific engagement? So this is one big challenge, one big problem that we have in terms of, first of all, identifying what these things are. Because many are disregarded, many are ignored, they're just strewn all over, and nobody really connects them with some kind of a development that we've gone through over a period of time. This is the biggest challenge, Madam Speaker, that we have as a country. The next is, have we seen what other museums have evolved to? Because a lot more of the museums we have in the rest of the world have evolved from just being indicators of evolution, but are real spots of tourism. Yeah? Tourism. If you get in some of these big cities, one of the places that, even if you asked, what are the best sites that you want to see? Where can you go to as a tourist? You realize that museums will be featuring all over. Museums, and there will be one place, one part of the city, another part of the city, because of they're looking at museums no longer as just storage of history, of science, but museums as spots where you are able to attract tourists. We have this, if you look at the Romanic, even their own roads, they remain historic. How the roads were done, they remain very historic because they survive to date roads that were done in the 17th, 18th century. What was the science behind doing those roads? What was the science behind some of the things that are still existing? What was the science Even if you are in London today, you realize people are staying in houses that were done in 18th, 19th century. What is the science behind this? When our houses here in Githurai will collapse in under 3 years. So what is it that was behind these things? So in my view, these are some of the things that really need to be collected deliberately. And this is where we must, like, I want to think the mover needs to look at this very seriously. That who is really able to identify that this is where the issue is? Who is able to identify for us the first house that was done by our first, whether they're Juakali, first mentions in this country? What was the first house that they did? Where is that house to date? Does it survive? What is it that was done that we are able to get it, that our current houses cannot stand for 5 years? So these are really the reasons why museums are very necessary. Yeah? Apart from being issues of evolution, they're also reference points. That something happened, something was done, and it has withstood the times, and it exists to date. So, Madam Speaker, I really support this, but we really need to focus in terms of the identification process of what we consider as scientific, that has evolved, has grown with us over a period of time, Madam Speaker. What we have at the moment, Madam Speaker, are shells. Yeah? In fact, I can clearly say that what we have now as a scientific museum is only Railways Museum in this country. I don't think there's any other. Yeah? I really don't think there's any other. And the Railway Museum is somewhere in the middle of a dilapidated place, ignored, and nobody knows that it exists. Only a few of us have an idea that it exists. But that is a very serious scientific kind of museum that we have. In as much as it is not us who developed the first trains, that it's not us who developed the first rail lines, but it is here to demonstrate that no, things had happened. Madam Speaker, I keep saying that you look at the bridge that was done in San Francisco in the 18th century, still survives and remains one of the biggest bridges we have in the world. Yet in this country, the bridge that we can really say is ours, that we've seen over a period of time, was done in the 70s, the bridge that is Nyali Bridge. Yet the one in San Francisco has withstood the time. It's been there for over 300 years. It's the biggest, and it's such a scene that it behoves. When you get there, you realize, no, there is something that was done. So if somebody was able to do that 300 years ago, what kind of a brain would that be to date? I think this is the kind of a relationship that we need to be looking at when we are looking at the issues of museum. So, Madam Speaker, I thank Jay for this, and I support.
Thank you, Dr. Ochanda. The Honorable Momanyi Jerusha Mongina, member for Nyamira County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I also rise to support the establishment of science museums in our country, Kenya. Madam Speaker, the kind of museums that we have these days, which were established a long time ago, they do not have facts which can convince even the Africans to appreciate what used to happen. Madam Speaker, if some of us who went to school and who went out to do research, when we went to study oral literature, Madam Speaker, we were getting information, real information, from the old people, and they were telling us on how they used to do things. Madam Speaker, we could understand that before the invention of the health facilities which we have these days, Madam Speaker, even our forefathers used to do operations. They could operate somebody, and finally that person could survive. We are not able these days to understand how they used to do it. If there were science museums which could explain which could keep these facts and explain them to us, we could be able to appreciate how far we have come, how far the evolution of the knowledge that we have these days, how far we have come. Madam Speaker, if we look at our country today, from different cultural backgrounds where we come from, we can appreciate that even the languages, the different languages, our mother tongues which we used to talk, the children of this era cannot even be able to communicate or understand what the native language is communicating. Madam Speaker, I want to support this motion because the science museums will keep what will be there for posterity, so that even those who will come will understand where we have come from, where we are, and what are some of the innovations which have been put in place, which have made our economy even to grow, our education to grow, where even the students who are in universities can go and make research and understand and even contribute to the increase of that knowledge which we want as a country. So, Madam Speaker, I want to support and thank KJ for bringing this very progressive motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Naomi Wako, member for Marsabit County.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important motion, as I also congratulate Honorable John Kierie for coming up with this motion of establishment of a science museum. And from the onset, I confirm that I support and I suggest that it is a good idea, yes, but as we establish, let us not only think of the big cities, but think of every county and, if possible, every constituency. Because when it comes to development and growing different areas, in the past we have been concentrating on big towns, big places, and forgotten some areas that need a lot of such establishment of museums. And I want to say that Kenya is growing very fast, and especially our young people have gone before us and have connected with the world, and they have learned a lot of things. And in order for us to keep them busy and be relevant, we must have establishment of different establishment of museums and ICT centers and different hubs that can keep them busy and also create employment for our young people. We know very well that we have so many graduates in this country who are not employed and are seeking employment, and establishment of science museum will be an exciting thing for our young people, and that will keep them being creative, innovative, and they will easily connect with the world and remain relevant. Honorable Speaker, I support this idea, again, because as Africans, we have lost a lot. When we were colonized, we lost almost everything that we had as our culture, our tradition, and we adapted the Western culture that keeps affecting us. And today, it is hard for us even to go back, hard for our generation, and it will be too hard for the young generation. And the only way that we can be relevant as Africans is by coming up with museums so that our young people or the generations that will come after us will be able to see what has been happening in the past and also relate with the history so that they can learn from that. We know very well that museums are a place to explore and test ideas about the natural world. And we know very well again, in our country, we are endowed, we have been blessed with different cultures, different traditions, different languages, and we are all proud of where we come from. But nothing much has been done in terms of keeping history and showcasing what we've had in the past. And that is why displaying those things today in our museums will be the best thing that we can do as a country. Again, science, when it comes to science and research, we know very well that we are also gifted. Kenyans are very knowledgeable, and doing research, many of our young people who have that skill have not been utilized and have not utilized their skills. If we do this in every country, in every county, we will be able to utilize the skills of our young people and even those who are experienced, so that we can bring together ideas and even explore more ideas and do enough research and see how we can benefit our country. Honorable Speaker, you know very well that today cancer is one illness that is affecting the entire world. But especially us as Kenyans, we have been seriously affected. And for those of us who come from northern part of this country, and especially Marsabit, we have been wondering why we have lost a lot of our people to cancer. And it is good, it will only be good for us to engage in more research and invite experts so that we can know the root cause of our problem. The only thing that we can do today, and the only special gift that we can give to our young people and generations to come, is to establish a science museum in every county. And Honorable Speaker, the purpose of a museum is for education. Our young people will be motivated. They will be able to go to different places and exchange ideas. The other purpose is inspiration. We will be able to inspire so many people. We have other people who have gone before us in different communities. And it will be good for us to keep the fire burning by talking about them, by capturing their ideas and what they have done in the past, so that even the young generation can be proud of what our forefathers have done. By showcasing different cultures and traditions, we will be able to inspire so many people. Again, it will be another tourist attraction center. Our young people who are in schools will be able to visit the museums and learn, and it will encourage so many people. For some of us, seeing is believing. When people visit and see the different cultures, the different traditions, the things that we used to do in the past, we will all be proud of that. When we were young, we used to, gather around our grandparents and elderly people, and we used to learn a lot from them. They used to speak to us. And up to today, some of the things that we caught, some of the words of wisdom that we use from our villages are the words that we got when we were growing up. These science museums, will serve a great purpose in our nation. I would want to say that as a government today, if we can invest in establishment of the museums, the science museums, we will have done one of the great things that we need to do, and we'll have invested for the future. Again, we cannot only invest in establishing, but maintaining, because as a country we are also good at establishing something and we forget the maintenance part of it. So if we can come up with a program that caters from the beginning to the end and make sure that it will be very well planned for and self-sustaining, so that even generations that will come after us will continue enjoying, and it will go beyond our generation and also developing our different counties and creating jobs. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support and I pray that it will be established in, if not in all the villages, in every county and in every constituency. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Abzirat Ali, nominated member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I take this opportunity to thank the Honorable KJ, a very young and innovative member. I think by establishing a science museum will help this country in collections of ideas, scientific ideas. We have a lot of scattered skills, and by having a museum, we'll have, a center for innovation and skills data. This museum also, Madam Speaker, can be used as a reference point for our technological aspect. When we have, data collected for some times and information taken to a center, it can be used for perfection and for creation of, the skills that can take this country far. Madam Speaker, we have technology as a culture, and it's evolving always. It's dynamic. And by having, a science museum, this innovation culture will always be remembered for our youth, for our generations. I happened to travel to a place called Stuttgart in Germany, and I visited a Mercedes-Benz museum. I have seen Mercedes-Benz evolve from maybe within a century or so, evolved from a place, a situation where they used to be pulled by a cart, and it evolved until its present level. By going there, you will just see a whole complete, culture of innovations. And by emulating such, advanced museums, even ourselves, I think we can create a very robust science hub, historical hub that can be used for our own use. Finally, Madam Speaker, history is known to us. We have known our past. We know our past. We can use our past and compare it with our present to perfect it. And our future can only be good if we, grab our knowledge of the past and the present. Therefore, by having a museum that is, technology oriented, I think we will take our country to the places we admire to be. With those few remarks, I thank and I support the motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Honorable Mpuri Aburi, member for Tigania East.
Asante Madam Speaker kwa kunipa nafasi hii. Yangu ni kidogo sana. Ya kwamba tukiwa na museum katika nchi yetu ya Kenya ni kitu ya maana. Kwa sababu zamani hapa katika nchi yetu ya Kenya kulikuwa na machini ya kutengeza unga. Kabla zile machini sasa list ama close kuja hapa Kenya, kulikuwa na machini yatengenezwa na maji. Ilikuwa ni mawe kwa mawe ambayo ilikuwa inazunguza unga, watu wanaenda kutengeza ugali. Lakini wazee hizi vijana wetu ama watoto wetu ukiwauliza kwamba ukiwaeleza ya kwamba kulikuwa na machini kama hii, hawezi jua kwa sababu sisi tulizao. Zamani mtu angekatwa na panga, kulikuwa na ndawa ya miti ambayo ilikuwa inakatwa inawekwa kwa mkono na mkono inasikana. Siku hizi hao vijana wetu wakiuliza vitu kama hizo hawawezi wakajua. Ndivyo ninasema kwamba lazima tuwe na science museum. For example, ukienda kule kwangu Meru, ukiangalia museum ya Meru County, unapata pale manyoka peke yake na tortoise. Na hizo vitu zote hatatakani katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Zamani kulikuwa na gari inaitwa teleboka. Na hiyo gari ilikuwa ni ya miguu nne, ilikuwa ni ya miti. Ukieleza vijana wetu ya kwamba kulikuwa na gari kama hiyo, hawezi wakajua bwana Spika. Ndipo mimi nasema kwamba lazima tunasupport hii museum, ndio tuwe iti ya kwamba wakati itafika watoto wetu watuulize ya kwamba nyinyi mlikuwa mbunge, nyinyi mlikuwa viongozi, kwa nini mlipoteza utamaduni wetu? Ndipo naambia watu iti ya kwamba rundiza gari yako side mirror, angalia mahali umetoka, iti ya kwamba kuna watu ambao umeacha nyuma. So Madam Speaker, mimi na support hiyo hoja ya bwana KJ. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable James Nyikal, member for Seme.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Let me start by appreciating the initiative of Honorable KJ. Madam Speaker, storing knowledge is recognizing knowledge. And a museum is exactly in the same place as a library, except how it is used. We shouldn't see it in terms of tourism, but we should see it in terms of the knowledge that is there. Madam Speaker, this world we live in is actually technical. And if you even look at the link between religion, science, politics, and development, you are actually amazed that for those who are religious, when God created the world, at the end of it, he said, I put this in the hands of the human beings which were created last to take care of. And you cannot have dominion over anything if you do not understand it. And therefore, the basis of our existence in this world is understanding how creation works. And that is what science is all about. What we do in politics is basically to manage that knowledge, whether it is technology, whether it's pure knowledge, so that it is for the benefit of mankind. And to that extent, it is actually our duty to store that knowledge in a structured manner that can later on be actually used, so that knowledge grows upon existing knowledge. It is incremental. Madam Speaker, many people don't think there was science in Africa. But how could we have survived in a technical world if we did not understand? I'm amazed, Madam Speaker, the indigenous knowledge we have. I look back when I was a child, and I think of an environment, and one thing my grandfather hated was people who were cutting trees. He would always say, why are you cutting that tree? You will create a desert. Did it have to take time for us to go to international conferences to know what my grandfather knew? It's because we didn't store it. Madam Speaker, if you look at food, I look at food storage. We look at freezing as the best way of storing food. But look at how we stored food. Drying food with salt is extremely scientific. No bacteria can grow in a dry environment which is with salt. It's extremely scientific. Fermenting food produces antibacterials. And it took a long time before it was realized that fermented milk or sour milk actually will stay longer on the shelf without invasion from bacteria. So that when we were giving our children fermented milk, people thought that this was not smart. Look at food. Blood. I mean, it was known, at least in my culture, that children and pregnant women, you needed to get blood from animals to feed them. Now, of course, we go to the hospitals to get folic acid, to get iron. They were just given food. Then, when the Europeans came, these things were seen as backward, and we didn't store it. So, Madam Speaker, look at ironmongery. All cultures actually...
Order. Honorable Nyikal.
Okay.
Honorable Nyikal, the motion will proceed at another time, and you have a balance of 5 minutes.
Thank you.
In case you wish to continue with the debate. Honorable members, as you are aware, the Speaker made a communication yesterday, 1st October 2024, that today morning sitting will be interrupted at 12 noon to allow a forum for a briefing of members on the modalities of public participation in regard to the special motion for removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua as Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. The Kamukunji will be at noon. Here in the chamber, I therefore call upon members to attend, and as I adjourn, I request those in the chamber to remain. Honorable members, and the time now being 11:56, this House stands adjourned until today, Wednesday, 2nd of October, 2024 at 2:30 p.m.